Hello and welcome back to Kin in Line. This I make part 96, and I'm in the subs on the Herald, so I think we've leapt forward a few years. But for what it's worth, let's go there. I mean, I've still got to go back and do some reporting in London for 2 years. But since I've started, we was back in, this would have been, I started subbing in 1994 after 10 years of reporting, in the hope that I would come in as the technology changed and would get the new skills. But unfortunately, that took about 3 years. So at this stage, we've got an elderly guy who was actually what we call dashing. He was just he would come in and help out, and earn a bit of money doing so. A retired journalist who comes back. That's what most journalists end up having to do, because the salary is never really very good. Anyway, you can see he's working on the old ATEX system. So there's a strange little terminal, a big flat chunk of a keyboard, chunky hands, and Eric, who was already pretty old then, seated at the terminal. So here I've got him again. So I would have been sitting down table from him, subbing. See if we can get him in focus a bit. Yeah. So mulling over some poorly written copy, perhaps. I like the little finger hanging over the side of the keyboard. That's how thick those keyboards were. So when I first got onto the subs table, this guy, Barry Avery, was the chief sub. And I eventually did some chief subbing, which was a terrible task at that time. You basically, it was just such a heavy workload. You had such heavy responsibility. You got very little help from anyone. So anyway, and this is actually quite a poignant one. This, I'm pretty sure, is a guy called Bob Kernahan, who recently passed away in his 70s, I think. Also veteran sort of sub-editor, and also newspaper unionist, really, stuck up for the workers. And so this, it says there, Bob Kernahan, late 90s. So here you can see this was drawn on the back of a printout of a photograph that it's a sort of journalism now. Herald, page 5, 3 columns by 10 centimeters, page 5 lead. So I did a lot of laying out of pages, even on this early ATEX system. And we got just trying to focus, So we got our photographs initially. This is 95, so a year after I started working as a sub. And the Associated Press of America was at this point, our only source of photographs. So we were getting photographs via what we would call the internet. But we were still laying out on the old system, the ATEX system, and we would transition over the next couple of years. And Bob would be one of those who would struggle with new technology, as we all did. So this is actually in memory of Bob Kernahan, Scotsman. Came out to this country in about the 60s or 70s, I think. So I've really got a mishmash here. I don't know who I think I might have skipped right forward to when my kids were young. And this is one of them on a scooter. So yeah, you've got to expect all sorts of interesting things when you throw your pictures together. And this is probably just an idealized version of one of my boys. I had two sons, have two sons. And this was me, probably reading that damn newspaper. Yeah, I'd forgotten I'd done this. Quite a nice. I like this with legs always crossed. And this might well be my wife, Robin. Sure she wouldn't be overly taken with that. Yeah. These were lost to me in the mists of time. But now we get back to journalism, and this was a character. Unfortunately, a bit of foxing has occurred. Did a very quick sketch of Robert Ball, who was a sort of deputy editor, one of those mahogany row people that, just somehow lorded it over us, but he was quite a character. And he wrote a column which I just happen to also have called Hugh Barkins. So that's the same guy. That was his pseudonym, really. And it was just a nice readable column, which you don't get anymore. I mean, there's just nobody today capable of writing anything like that. The whole art of journalism is pretty well collapsed. I shouldn't really be. I think I'm going to skip these. Get back to the city of Port Elizabeth. So during my many wanderings around, I went to the St. Mary's Cemetery, which started about 1799, when the first British settlers occupied or built and occupied a fort, Fort Frederick. That was during the height of the Napoleonic Wars, I think it was the Napoleonic Wars against the French. And so they wanted to establish a presence in the Eastern Cape. And that Fort Frederick was the first British presence here. And in that cemetery, I did this drawing of a cross. That's some really historic graves there. We saw this church previously. It's the Herald Presbyterian, as seen from the Donkin Reserve. So when Donkin built his pyramid, which we also saw in a minute part of a big drawing, as a tribute to his late wife, he also proclaimed this area of open ground overlooking the city as open, should never be developed on. And as you look across at you, on the corner, you've got this wonderful 1860s church. I did another church here, which is the Roman Catholic St. Augustine's Cathedral it became, in White's Road. White's Road has also sadly been renamed, because White was a major road engineer who built the road called White's Road. And he also built the pass up to Seaburg, and the name Fancourt down in George Neisner area, that was part of his name, and there's history there. I think he worked on that area as well, and that's how the golf course got its name. here is a sort of impressionist like drawing, painting that I did looking down the Barkens Valley towards the harbour with those cranes jutting out. It's very loosely painted, but Fort Frederick would be up there on the left. That was Southend on this side of the river, and the city was first developed on the northern side of the river. And then there was not much was left of Southend after the destruction of under the Group Areas Act in the 1960s and 70s. But this little one in Upper Valley Road, this row of houses, sort of semi-detached, I really enjoyed, and I was fortunate to do this drawing because these have subsequently been converted into a shopping setup. I've also got photographs of these to keep as a memory of how they actually looked, because this was a remnant of Southend. It wasn't a slum in the true sense of the word at all. Okay, so I think I'll delay going through. I've got some more court drawings I see. So I really am jumping around, but let's just enjoy a few abstract watercolors here. Always interesting to see what's on the back. So, yeah, when we had our news conferences, we were part of the group. So here you can see London from Chris Bateman. He was the London correspondent, I think, must have been after me. And there's several things that he would have filed. The Daily Dispatch would notify us what they were working on, Mercury, etc. Business Day. These were all part of the group, the Times Media Limited. And so then we knew what to expect on that evening. Yeah, another colourful abstract. And as we say in Afrikaans, nog 'n enetjie. Of course, I could have this the wrong way up, but I quite like it like this. And something tells me this is a vertical shape with a triangle at its heart. Yeah, this is a continuation of that news diary. Mabusela, he was one of our reporters. Holmes, Piercy, they were the photographers. Urquhart. So on this would also be listed the reporters and what stories they were working on. And with all that information, then they would decide what goes where, and we'll come back to my son, probably Luke, a little late in this project. Cheers for now.